Edge Christian reluctantly give him the shot, and then they win. Now, I don't know how they win. Maybe via pinfall. Let's say that. It's a good one to do. So, May 29th, Saturn and Malenko win the Tag Team Championships, all right? Are you like that
Edge of the seat storytelling here. Like, maybe they win by pinfall. I don't know.
Hey, it could happen.
It's very likely to happen. You're right. In a pro wrestling match, winning by pinfall is very likely.
And now, it's time for Making Kayfabe with your hosts, Bryce and Dylan.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the best podcast in the world, Making Kayfabe, where myself and my good friend Bryce, we go through the history of wrestling and try to rewrite it in our own image, our own glorious, beautiful image that's beautiful and glorious. Isn't that right?
That's very right, though, and I'm very excited for this week's episode. What have you got for us?
Well, this week I thought, there's a guy that I think is a little bit kind of underutilized, or was underutilized back in the Attitude Era, and so I wanted to maybe give a little bit more spotlight to this gentleman, but not just that one gentleman, a second gentleman as well. There's going to be two gentlemen in my podcast episode this week. So strap yourself in for two gentlemen.
I'm ready for two gentlemen. I'm always ready for two gentlemen.
Yeah, I was going to say, not the first time you've had to strap yourself in for two gentlemen. There we go. See, we're getting the jokes in. Oh, man. So, what I wanted to talk about today is Perry Saturn and Dean Malenko.
Ah, the Radicalz.
The Radicalz, exactly. I always thought...
The forgotten Radicalz.
What?
The forgotten Radicalz.
Exactly.
You've got the two Radicalz who are Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero, who went on to bigger things, and Perry Saturn and Dean Malenko, who kind of didn't
do anything. That was exactly my point. I always felt that, like, when the Radicalz came in, like, pretty much off the bat, it seemed like Benoit and Eddie were destined for better things, right? That was pretty much, especially Benoit, like, they were really doing a number with him straight off the bat. So you knew that those two guys had, like, momentum and, like, push behind them. But then Dean Malenko had a pretty good run as a light heavyweight champion. So that's
was that a good run?
It was a good run. The problem is nobody cared about the light heavyweight championship.
Yeah. So
that was a bit of a tricky situation. And Perry Saturn didn't really do a whole lot. I'll cover that in a wee second. So I felt like all four of those guys were very talented and very successful in other companies. And I feel like maybe Perry Saturn and Dean Malenko got a bit of a short straw, especially when compared with Eddie and Benoit. Now, I'm not saying that Dean Malenko should be world heavyweight champion, but I'm saying that these guys they had the ability to maybe be a little bit more than what they were presented. So I'm going to try.
Yeah, I hope by saying Perry Saturn didn't go on too much, you're not saying that you're going to just sweep Moppy under the rug.
Oh, unfortunately, I am, my friend.
My
that is, in my universe, that is getting erased.
Well, I know what my next episode's going to be about.
Moppy isn't technically a wrestler, so I don't know if you can do that.
I'm sure he competed in a match.
Well, is Head a wrestler?
In WWF Attitudes, the game.
Oh,
you unlock him, don't you?
That's a good point. Yes, you do unlock him, and he's just a floating head, and it's super weird.
Yeah, that's it. It's like one of the hardest things to unlock.
Dude, I did it. I unlocked him. I don't remember how I did it, but I really wanted to see what it was, so I just fucking spent hours trying to beat that game, and that game wasn't that good.
Are you serious? That's like the first wrestling game I ever played. I love that game.
The controls were like jank. Like No Mercy was way better, and that's just facts. No Mercy was quicker. I mean, it was okay. Anyway, we're not here to talk about. We're not talking about WF Attitude, the video game. We'll talk about that in our podcast, video game podcast later on.
So exactly.
Yeah, we got lots of podcasts. Yeah, exactly.
But I get what you mean about saying Perry Saturn and Perry Saturn. Perry Saturn and Dean Malenko were kind of they deserve better, because Dean Malenko is a really smooth wrestler. He's probably the best technical wrestler of all time. Not many people come close to him in that. I'm pretty sure that When what's the PWI 500 or Sports Illustrated 500 or something like that? I've forgotten what it is. I think it's PWI 500. When that was like a legitimate thing for its first year ever, it was like based on like legitimate wrestling ability, and Dean Malenko was number one. And then since then it's like based on like overness and kayfabe and stuff. So like I'm pretty sure the lineage goes something like Dean Malenko and then Steve Austin, The Rock, John Cena, like all these things. So Dean Malenko was like the first ever to win that. And Perry Saturn himself, I don't know much about Perry Saturn, but I have watched the early ECW pay-per-views, and one of which is when he's in the Eliminators. Yeah. And you get Joe Styles, total elimination. And he can do so much stuff. Like, I had no idea of Perry Saturn because I only saw him briefly in WWF when I was a kid. And he's doing all these like flips and shit. He's jumping off the top rope and he's like just doing incredible moves. He's like the most like nimble, athletic like guy I had no idea about because I'd only ever really seen him with a mop in his hand. So, I mean, he's totally underutilized. I don't know what his promo ability was like, to be honest. But I mean, his wrestling ability is unquestionable.
Exactly. Like that was kind of the same mindset I went through. Like when I started watching wrestling, it was about the time the Radicalz came in, and Perry Saturn was there, but he didn't really do a whole lot and you didn't get to show off too much. And then I went back and watched old ECW tapes and shows, and you're like, whoa, this guy, he was really good, definitely underrated. If you just go back and watch his older stuff, you're like, whoa, dude. So I wanted to, try to give a little positive spin to the Perry Saturn story.
Nice.
So I'm going to try and do that right now. I'm going to give you a little history of Perry Saturn. So as you mentioned, the Perry Saturn and Dean Malenko entered the WWF alongside Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit as the Radicalz. And, during that time, Malenko won the light heavyweight championship. And Benoit was like chasing after the Intercontinental Championship. Eddie won the European Championship. So they were all doing pretty well. At some point, there was a triple threat Judgment Day. I'll tell you exactly what point. Judgment Day, which was May 21st, year 2000. Malenko, Saturn, and Guerrero all fought in a triple threat match for the European Championship, which Guerrero was the champion at the time. So already, they started in like January, I think, of 2000. We're into May, and they were already like Benoit's out of the picture, and they were already fighting with each other. It's not team unity, you know what I mean? They're already kind of letting the wheels off, and you're like, ugh, don't drop the ball this quickly,
Already, yeah.
Saturn later on had Terry Runnels as a manager, and then after he got Terry as a manager, he managed to beat Eddie Guerrero for the European Championship, and he held it for about a month. He held it from July 23rd to August 31st. Guess who he lost the belt to? Spoiler, it's not Viscera.
Who he lost the belt to?
Yeah.
When was this? This was September 31st.
2000.
Yeah. And I'm going to say Jericho.
No, he lost it to Al Snow.
Oh, Snow, your boy.
But this is when Al Snow did the thing where he was the European champion, so he would come out as different guys from different parts of Europe. And I'm like, oh, like when I saw that, I'm like, he's my true love. You know what I mean?
I was really confused about that when I watched it, because I've got one memory of it happening, and I'm pretty sure one time he came out with a Hong Kong Phooey, a photo of Hong Kong Phooey, and I was like, Hong Kong's not Europe. What's going on? But
exactly.
And I remember one time he came out with a picture of William Regal and the Queen.
Yes, because I think Regal beat him for the European Championship.
Right.
Because William Regal was like, how dare you be smart to Europe? And then he's like, China isn't even in Europe. Like,
yeah,
you're making a mockery of this. And then that William Regal Al Snow business happens. But we're not talking about those guys right now. Although I'm sure William Regal's going to pop up in a podcast soon.
He is a gentleman.
Oh, well, yes, he is. And Al Snow's a gentleman. There's two more gentlemen for you if you wanted them. But anyway, also at some point, Perry Saturn won the Hardcore Championship twice. But as we covered in the Taz podcast, where Taz is a 3-time Hardcore champion, it doesn't really mean a whole lot, does it? Doesn't really mean a whole lot. So that's pretty much it for like title opportunities for Malenko and Saturn. It's not a whole lot.
Shame.
Right, exactly. So then near the end of 2000, the Radicalz get back together for some reason, and they kind of like have a feud with the Hardy Boys because Malenko is like hot for Lita, and she doesn't like him. That is just a thing, and I don't quite get that. And then at WrestleMania 2001, Eddie Guerrero fights Test for the European Championship. Do you remember when Test was European champion?
I do. Is this WrestleMania, right?
Yes, WrestleMania 2001.
Yeah, I remember that match. Test got caught in the rope, and like it was a really awkward kind of mess. He was like falling out the ring, and his leg got kind of caught between the two ropes, and like eventually Eddie Guerrero had to like basically break kayfabe and like help him out of the ropes because he was genuinely stuck. I remember that match.
Good old Test. So Perry Saturn helps Eddie Guerrero win the championship. So Team Unity again, but then typically shortly after WrestleMania, the Radicalz split. Malenko and Saturn team for a little bit, but doesn't really go anywhere. At some point, Perry Saturn just beats the shit out of a jobber called Mike Bell.
Oh, I remember this.
On like an episode of Heat or something, just like destroys him. Something to do with like a parking ticket, I think. I'm not 100% sure what that was about.
Was it not that like Perry Saturn got knocked out or something? Like he got knocked out during the match, and then like I think he just saw red and just beat the shit out of this guy. I remember seeing the video. Like he was generally like laying like fists down and like threw him out the ring, and he landed on his head and like all of that stuff. I remember that.
Yeah, he goes to town on that guy, but I'm not quite sure what the deal was. But Saturn goes a little bit too far, and so after that, he kind of got quote unquote punished. By being given a gimmick where he could talk to a mop called Moppy, as we've covered. And that was pretty much it for Perry Saturn. Malenko retired in 2001, so that was pretty much it for him as well. He was he was a wrestler for about a year and a half, and then he retired. So, that's the history of those two guys. But not really like anything too much to shout about in the WWF. In WCW and ECW, like I said, they were much bigger deals. Malenko was a former 4-time Cruiserweight champion in WCW and held the United States Championship and the Tag Team Championship. He held that with Benoit. And in ECW, he was a 2-time television champion, a 1-time Tag Team champion, again with Benoit. So, he could work. Saturn was a 3-time tag team champion in ECW with John Cronus as the Eliminators, as we also
elimination.
The Eliminators, and then he also won the what did he win? Oh, he won the television championship 1 time in WCW and the tag team championships twice, once with Raven and once with Benoit. So Benoit can clearly work with all these guys, and they're both clearly pretty well versed in tag team wrestling, as you can see in the other 2 companies they were in, former tag team champions. So they've done that business themselves. So that's the history out of the way. A little history lesson. Let's get down to some business. All right. So, we're gonna assume that Eddie and Benoit are gonna be destined for great things. So we're gonna try and make something out of Malenko and Perry Saturn. So. Right off the bat, you can have Benoit gunning for the IC Championship and Eddie gunning for the European Championship. That's fine. That can stay the way it is. But that leaves Saturn and Malenko to form a tag team to go after the Tag Team Championships. Now, in the year 2000 and the year 2001, there were pretty much 3 big tag teams at the time that were they were ruling the roost, as it were. So Edgy Christian, Dudley Boys, and Hardy Boys.
Yeah.
So I figure, wouldn't it be cool if we kind of inserted Malenko and Saturn into that a little bit? Make it a little wild, because you've got those, 3 teams of guys that are young and hungry and want to make a name for themselves. Malenko and Saturn, by this point, well-experienced veterans, would be an interesting kind of angle in the middle of it. You know what I mean? Also, because the Radicalz, did that thing with Lita, so they were feuding with the Hardy Boys anyway. So it's not, it could work. It could work. So let's try to work it. In let me see. In 2000, the beginning of 2000, the Dudley Boys beat the New Age Outlaws for the Tag Team Championships in February, which leads to the Triangle Ladder match at WrestleMania 2000 between the 3 teams that we've already covered. So that can stay the way it is because I'm not taking a classic like that out of the picture.
Great match.
Right. So we'll keep that going. But we're also going to keep Malenko and Saturn building themselves up as a legit team in the tag team division. So they're going to be going up against classic, 2000 tag teams such as Too Cool.
Oh, yeah.
Classics. Kai and Tai.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Head Cheese. Also known as Steve Blackman. A classic duo. You know what I mean? So they're going to be racking up wins over some of those already established tag teams.
So established.
Very established. Hey, Too Cool won the tag team championships.
Did they?
I'm about to cover that.
All right.
Let me see. Edge and Christian won the belts at WrestleMania, and then they lost the belts to Too Cool at some point in May. I think it was just like on an episode of Raw or something. They lost it. Well, you know what's the weird thing is? I don't think that episode is on the network.
Oh. So it never happened.
We went looking. Well, it does happen because we went looking for that episode and we couldn't find it. So we couldn't find the episode where Too Cool win the belts, but we can see footage of Too Cool defending the belts. So it did happen.
Maybe it's SmackDown?
Maybe. I'm not quite sure what happened there. So in May 29th, Too Cool beat Edge and Christian. And then I think like a month later, June 25th at King of the Ring, there's a fatal 4-way tag team match with the Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian, Too Cool, and TNA. Remember those guys?
Yeah, Test and Albert.
Test and Albert. Test back again. He's always in the mix. So
or TNA, like the promotion.
Yeah. So let me see. Here's what I propose. All right. We all love Too Cool, but wouldn't it make more sense if instead of Too Cool, it was the Radicalz who randomly challenged Edge and Christian, and then they win the belts. Win, maybe via pin Saturn and Malenko. Challenge. They're like we've beat every other team on the show. So May 29th, Saturn and Malenko win the tag team championships. All right. You like that
Edge of the seat storytelling here. Like, maybe they win by pinfall. I don't know.
Hey, it could happen.
It's very likely to happen. You're right. In a pro wrestling match, winning by pinfall is very likely.
Sometimes matches just end with the referee stopping it. So
sometimes it's a Hell in a Cell match and it ends
exactly. Exactly. So just bear that stuff in mind. Sometimes pinfalls aren't. You want a pinfall, it doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the Radicalz win the belts May 29th on some random episode of Raw or SmackDown. And they hold the belts until SummerSlam 2000. So at SummerSlam 2000, we had the triple threat ladder match again. Edge and Christian, Dudley Boys. I think maybe was that the first TLC?
I don't know. Potentially.
So, I think the one at WrestleMania was just like a ladder match, and then I think the second one was officially called a TLC match. I'm not sure about that, but regardless, we know what match we're talking about. I propose we add Saturn and Malenko in there. So it's now a 4-way or 4-team ladder match for the championships. Dudley's, Edge and Christian, Hardy Boys, and the Radicalz. I would have the Dudley Boys win this.
Okay.
I think in real life, Edge and Christian won. But for this, we're going to have the Dudleys win it. So now what's interesting is you have the Dudleys who are the champions. And now you've got the former champions, the Radicalz, Malenko, and Saturn, who also previously worked in ECW. We've got a little ECW kind of thing going on here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because of that, Malenko and Saturn know how the Dudley Boys work. They know they're very violent. And they use tables and stuff like this. So they try to one-up the Dudley Boys. They try to, show that they're just as tough as the Dudley Boys.
Sure.
So they're like attacking them after matches and attacking the backstage and really making a big deal, like trying to prove to the Dudley Boys that they should be next in line for the belts. So I have the Dudley Boys fighting Malenko and Saturn in a street fight at Unforgiven.
Nice.
On September 24th, and I would have Malenko and Saturn win the belts back. So now Dudley Boys are pissed, obviously. So they're like, now they're the ones chasing after Malenko and Saturn. They're like, you can't beat us at our own game. We're gonna get you for this. So they do that thing they always do, where they start putting women through tables.
I was literally going to say that.
Is exactly what they used to do. So the Dudleys go and attack Terry Runnels, who I kept with Perry Saturn and Dave Malenko.
Nice.
And they put her through a table. So now the Radicalz are like, fuck you. You're a piece of shit. So I say from here, it's like No Mercy's the next pay-per-view, October 22nd. So why don't we just have a table match for the belts? And this is the one. This is a decider. We're going to do this. And they make it very violent and ECW-esque. And it's a crazy old time. But eventually, because it's a tables match and it's their specialty, the Dudley Boys sneak a win. They get the belts back. So then at Survivor Series 2000, we have a Survivor Series match. The Dudley Boys and the Hardy Boys, who I would have as faces, against the Radicalz and Edge and Christian, who would be the heels. And they have a traditional old Survivor Series match because, it's still building the tension up between all these teams that are getting together. And I would have Edge and Christian win on their side because at some point the Dudleys and the Radicalz start brawling outside. You could have them like counted out or something like that, but they're still angry. And then this leads to another 4-team tag team championship match at Armageddon 2000, which is 10th of December apparently. And then I would have Edge and Christian win over the Dudley Boys because that happened a lot back in the day, as you remember. Like the belts were hot shotted between those teams quite quickly.
Yeah.
But it always worked. It always made you interested to see what was going to happen next. It was a risky gamble, but I think it paid off. So now these 3 teams are going back to focusing on each other. Malenko and Saturn are pretty pissed off. You know what I mean? At the beginning of the year 2001, at the Royal Rumble, Malenko and Saturn challenge Edge and Christian for the belts again. And Edge and Christian sneak a win because that's what they do. And so Malenko and Saturn get really pissed off about this. They're like, we've just had enough. We're not playing by anybody's rules anymore. Just forget the whole thing, So they start interrupting matches. They start like taking over commentary for no reason. They just start wrecking stuff backstage. They're making a big deal.
Bastards.
Yeah, right. Why would they do this? They're just making a mess.
Boys behaving badly.
It's silliness, is what it is. It's just a whole lot of silliness. And so eventually, obviously, people are like, you can't do this anymore. We're fed up of you wrecking the set every week. We got to put this up in a new town next week, and you're fucking it up. Stop doing that. So they're like, what's the deal? Why are you so angry? Is it because of the tag team belts? And Malenko and Saturn, they just come out one day and start to, they try to explain their actions. And they're like, basically, it doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what any of the wrestlers here do, because soon WWF, as it was at the time, is going to be dead and gone. We may as well just make havoc for ourselves because a couple of months, it's just not going to exist. So why don't we just do whatever we want? And everybody's like, what is that? What the fuck? What are you talking about? All right. So then WrestleMania 2001, you get the TLC match, Dudley's, Hardy's, Edge and Christian. Keep that the way it is. Malenko and Saturn, because of their reckless actions over the last month or two, now get quote-unquote punished for their reckless behavior by going through like a big old gauntlet match full of tag teams. You know the classics. We got Too Cool, Kai and Tai.
Head cheese.
Head cheese.
Established.
But then that's how gauntlet matches always work. You get the lower teams in first, and then the bigger teams come in later on. You know what I mean? So then you've got guys like the APA coming in.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna kick their ass. And the Right to Censor, who are pretty big deals in my mind. You know what I mean? That's some foreshadowing for my Right to Censor thing that I'm gonna do later. And this is a big deal about this whole thing, is that I'm gonna try and like properly keep this as one timeline.
Okay, nice.
So the reason the Right to Censor are a big deal at like WrestleMania 2001, I'll explain that in the Right to Censor podcast.
So is this like the next few episodes you're kind of linking together in the same kind of timeline?
Not just the next couple episodes. I'm gonna link like the kind of the stuff that I do in the year 2000, 2001, because I imagine I'll do a lot of it. I'm gonna try and tie it all together so that I'm actually booking the show properly.
Nice. All right, cool.
And I'll at some point I'll be doing more recent stuff and straying away from the Attitude Era. But usually when I'm doing Attitude Era stuff, I'm going to try and tie it all together. Okay.
Nice.
So that's going to be huge. It's going to be big. And that, spoiler alert, I've got some big plans for the Right to Censor.
Oh, good.
But I don't spoil it in this episode too much. So you're going to be sweet. Wait. So as you know, like right before WrestleMania 2001, Vince McMahon bought out WCW.
But did he?
Wow, that was like the week before WrestleMania, I think.
Yeah. But it was Shane McMahon, wasn't it? It was,
Oh,
but the name in the
yes.
contract isn't Vince McMahon, it's Shane
Yes.
McMahon, all that
It was
fish.
Shane McMahon. Well, the point is, the WCW got bought by the WWF, so that's how that happened. And technically, it started in May 28th, which is when Lance Storm appeared for the first time.
Yeah.
But like from WrestleMania to May, like that's a long gap. Why would they just sit around doing fuck all for like 3 or 4 months, right? Doesn't make any sense. So in my timeline, the day after WrestleMania, and obviously this is a big deal for people rewriting history. They always want to touch on the invasion angle. It's a big angle.
It's a big old angle.
It's a wangle of a dangle, and I am diving straight in and saying that the night after WrestleMania, all of the WCW guys just appear on Raw, and they're like, "We're from WCW. We're the best. This is the only wrestling show on time. So here we are. What are you gonna do about it?"
So let me just get this straight. So just so for the sake of clarifying things. So when you say all the WCW guys, are you talking about the WCW guys who were in the invasion angle? So we're not talking Goldberg, we're not talking Sting, we're talking Booker T, we're talking Mike Awesome, we're talking fucking Mark Jindrak. These kind of guys.
Hey, don't slag off Mark Jindrak.
I'm not slagging the Jindrak.
Good. Well, at the moment I haven't quite figured that out because that's a big angle.
Yeah.
But let's just say lots of WCW guys appear the next day, and so everybody is kind of like, "What the fuck do we do now? All these guys are here," but Malenko and Saturn, who are former WCW employees, it doesn't seem to make a difference to them at all. Interesting. So obviously the WWF guys are like coming after Malenko and Saturn, and they're like, what do you know about this? Why isn't this freaking you out? What are you up to? But Malenko and Saturn, they ain't saying nothing. Obviously, we know that they predicted it. They were saying none of this shit makes any difference. We'll burn it down. Nobody listened, so now they're not talking.
Johnny tight lips.
Exactly. Because loose lips, they sink ships, and who wants to sink ships?
That's it.
Anyway, so I would have the WWF and WCW war beginning right then, and Malenko and Saturn, they stay in the middle. They're not taking sides.
Okay.
They could. They've got legitimate claim on both sides, but they're not picking a side.
But do they? So my challenge to this is Malenko, Saturn, Benoit, and Guerrero left WCW because they hated it there. Like the whole thing against it was that they weren't getting treated right, and fucking Russo was running ship over there, and he was sinking ships in WCW. That's for sure. So I mean, why would they want to be affiliated with WCW again a year after leaving?
Bryce, it's like you read my mind.
Oh, nice.
It's like you know what's coming next. So at some point, Saturn comes out. Malenko and Saturn come out, and they say, "Guys, the thing we were talking about, the thing that was going to fuck everything up, that's going to ruin the WWF, wasn't WCW. It was ECW." Who saw it coming? Nobody saw it coming. So now you've got the Dudleys and RVD, Raven, Just Incredible, Sandman, Rhino, Taz, who we covered. But I don't think I didn't get to the invasion with that. So
no,
Taz is involved. Maybe like Sabu, maybe like Steve Corino. You
just swerved the shit out of me there.
There you go. So did I?
Yeah, I did not see that coming. That's good.
So they built themselves up as WCW or the ECW as like a third thing, and instead, because in the invasion it was like WCW and ECW, the Alliance.
Yeah, the Alliance, yeah.
And I'm like, fuck that. Nobody in ECW would have been like, yeah, let's buddy up with fucking Buff Bagwell here. You know what I mean? They would have been like, fuck those clowns. We're going to do this ourselves.
Can you imagine like guys like Sandman cutting a promo with Buff Bagwell? They're fucking such a contrast there. Like it's so anti each other.
Exactly. Like it wouldn't have worked. So I have them as like their own like separate identity. And for the most part, ECW at the beginning, once they're established, kind of sit back and don't do anything. They're like, we'll just let these two guys burn each other out. Then we'll sweep in and, burn the rest to the ground. But then eventually, ECW, they're like, we want some of this action too. Because they're fighters, they're scrappy, they want to get in the middle of it. So they join the war as well. So now we've got WF, WCW, ECW. That's the beginning of my Invasion storyline and the end at the moment of the Saturn and Malenko storyline.
All right.
So yeah, it's going to lead eventually at some point, because I feel like if we're talking about rewriting history, at some point we are going to have to touch upon the Invasion. So I'm going to start laying the groundwork for that, so that when it comes time for me to do the Invasion, a lot of the stuff's already in place.
Okay. I like it.
There you go. What do you think of that?
I think that's pretty good. I'm excited to see kind of where you're going to take this with the Invasion. Like you say, the Invasion needs rewritten. I mean, it fucking sucked. I mean, when I was watching it as a kid, I remember enjoying it, but I look back in it and I'm like, just as a kind of wrestling fan, more in the know in my 20s, I look back and I'm thinking like, this could have been the most awesome thing in the whole of wrestling. You've got WWF and WCW who had a massive feud like for years and years and years, the whole Monday Night Wars stuff, and you could have had in Team Survivor Series you could have had Goldberg and Sting and Hogan, Nash, Hall versus Austin, Rock, Undertaker, Kane, like Kurt Angle, these guys, and we didn't really get that at all. Fucking Shane McMahon was in one of the teams, but yeah, it needs to be written, and I'm interested that you're putting Malenko and Saturn in there. It's not two characters who I would kind of associate with, being a big deal in the whole Invasion scenario. But I mean, that's why we're here. That's what we're doing. We're rewriting storylines to make guys like Malenko and Saturn actually matter.
Exactly. Like, one thing that annoyed me about the Invasion was like the whole, like it only seemed like the Invasion was a threat. Like, the Alliance only seemed like a threat because of the WWF guys. Like, Austin went over and he was the big deal. Like, he turned heel and he was the guy to beat. And you're like, why? None of that make any sense. It didn't make any sense. Why would you do that? So, little teaser alert, not a spoiler, a little teaser. In my history at WrestleMania 2001, all I'm going to say is that Austin heel turn doesn't happen.
Right, okay.
Something else will happen involving the heavyweight championship.
Oh my god, Dean Malenko, heavyweight champion.
Well, if it was, I would have covered it already. So, you see that? Oh, man, covering my tracks. Adding intrigue and mystery. Oh, what am I up to? You'll have to find out in a future installment of this fantastic podcast.
All right, I'm into that. I'm into hearing more about Perry Saturn and Dean Malenko, and especially more about the right to censor as well. I mean, that's what's Bill Buchanan doing in all this? What's the good father doing in all of this mess?
Dude, the right to censor stuff is gonna blow you away.
I can't wait.
It's gonna be a big one. I'm gonna take my time, really work on it, but it's gonna be like, what the fuck? Maybe in a good way, probably in a bad way, but
I mean, I'm already blown away by the ECW swerve there. I genuinely 100% did not see that coming. I was trying to like poke holes in your story, like, why are they going back to WCW? Why would you do that, you idiot? And then you fucking pulled the swerve with ECW. That's genius. I love that.
There you go. So, and it ties into their history and stuff, and you don't forget about them, because those two guys are pretty much forgotten about.
Yeah, pretty much are. I mean, what are they? I mean, Dean Malenko is in AEW these days. I think he's an agent, and Perry Saturn just disappeared off the face of the planet, didn't he?
He got pretty bad.
Yeah, he had drug problems. It's a shame. He got proper drug problems, and
he got shot as well.
He got shot?
Yeah.
What?
He that's how his drug problem started. He saw like two guys like attacking a girl, or like I think they were trying to rape her. Right. And he stepped in and was like, fuck you guys. So then they shot him.
Fucking hell.
And then he got really bad off like trying to, when he was recovering. I think that's when his drug problem started, and he got addicted to pills and stuff like that.
Oh man.
Isn't that messed up?
I didn't know that. That's awful. Poor guy.
Perry Saturn's my fucking hero.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to give him some props. The guy deserves it.
Bloody hell. Yeah, hope he's all right.
I think he's okay now. I think that like he's gone to rehab and he's doing better now. But I think he's just retired by this point. Like he's done.
Perry Saturn, if you are listening to this podcast, hang in there, buddy.
Perry Saturn, if you're listening to this, we love you, and wait till you see what happens in the Invasion storyline.
Wait until you see how this all ties into Right to Censor, Perry.
You're gonna fucking love it. You're gonna have a great time.
You will lose your shit.
Dude, the Right to Censor one, I don't want to hype it up too much, but like...
You've already hyped it up quite a lot.
I think you will lose your shit, but probably in the way where you're like, what? Why? Why did you do this? What the fuck? Yeah. But still, it's something different, so... But we'll get to that when we get to that. And why don't we play a little bit of Kayfabe Tombola, if you want. Do you have anything else you want to ask me about Perry Saturn and Malenko, or shall we move straight to the Tombola?
I mean, not really. I've asked all I can ask because I'm more interested in what happens next. You've got a lot more happening in your story, so I'm happy to jump onto a little bit of the Tombola.
Okay, cool. See, that's the trick, man. You want to build it up and make intrigue, suspense.
That's it, suspense. That's what it's all about.
I'm a very suspenseful person.
You're very suspensing, yeah.
Wow.
You have been known to suspense.
I definitely have suspended at some point.
Yes.
Anyway, let's move on to Kayfabe Tombola. Yay! We should have like a little jingle.
I was thinking that. Let's make a little jingle. I'll add a little jingle in here.
Yeah, exactly. If you can hear us talking about the jingle, it means we forgot.
But there will be a jingle.
It'll be later. So, okay. So I have 4 wrestlers for you, and then I have 4 scenarios for you.
All right.
Would you like to pick a letter from A to D, and then a number from 1 to 4?
Are you going to tell me the names and situations first, or what are we?
Would you rather? I quite like letting you pick and then telling you what you could have had afterwards.
All right. Okay. So give me 4D.
4D.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a great one.
All right.
Okay. So you could have had our old friend Headbanger Thrasher.
All right. Okay.
Could have had Molly Holly.
Yeah.
You could have had Goldberg.
All right. Nice.
You got Chris Kanyon.
Ah, who's better than?
Wow.
Right, okay.
So you gotta come up with a scenario about Chris Kanyon. Now here are the scenarios you turned down. Had an affair with Stephanie McMahon.
Right.
Can't do that one. Does something crazy spectacular in a ladder match.
Right.
Can't have that one. Slowly starts to turn into Buff Bagwell. You can't have that one. But tell you what you can have. You can have Chris Kanyon creating his own spin-off television show.
Of a spin-off of what?
WWF.
All right.
You know how they have like fucking Ms. and Mrs. or whatever, or like Total Divas?
All right, I'm with it. I'm up for it.
You gotta come up with some kind of spin-off television show involving Chris Kanyon, and it has to make sense as to why it would be a spin-off.
I'm into it. I've got an idea.
You got an idea?
Yeah.
So let me see. We're doing 60 seconds, are we?
Right, we're doing 60 seconds.
Let me get my little stopwatch up because I totally forgot to put it up earlier.
I'll cut this out.
Okay, I'm gonna put 60 seconds on the clock. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna say go, and then you're gonna go.
Give me the situation once more.
You're gonna be Chris Kanyon, who creates his own spin-off television show, a spin-off from the WWF. Okay.
Right. I'm ready.
And it has to make sense.
Yep.
You ready? Go.
All right. So Chris Kanyon, his catchphrase is "Who's better than Kanyon?" Right? Am I right?
Yes.
So the spin-off show is going to be a game show. It's going to be a game show to figure out who is better than Kanyon. All right, so you're going to get contestants from like the indie scene, and like they have a tournament to kind of battle together with each other. They fight each other, and the winner gets to face Kanyon. So every episode, just tournament, and then they battle each other. In the main event, they face Chris Kanyon, and Chris Kanyon just fucking destroys them all the time, every time. And it turns out that nobody is better than Kanyon because Kanyon is the fucking tits. So yeah, and that's. I thought I had more than that, but
can I really quickly? Yeah. When you say it's a bit like a game show, do they fight him at the end in like a quiz battle?
No. It's like wrestling. So they actually have a wrestling match. So it's like a spin-off wrestling show from a wrestling show, but it's the game show is Who's Better Than Canyon.
And it's very competitive. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then like Canyon's like the final boss to every episode. So it's like in Takeshi's Castle where they fight the general and all that. It's like that, but Canyon.
Okay.
And we find out who's better than him. So
your time is up.
All right. Yeah.
Time is up.
I think I done pretty well with that.
Whenever you said it was a game show, I'm like, oh, I am so into this. This is totally work. Because I was imagining like Kanye coming out with like the wee cue cards and stuff. and we suit like, welcome everybody to Who's Better Than Canyon. Exactly. With wee top hat and stuff.
I'm right.
I like it. That's well done.
And it turns out no one's better than Canyon because Canyon was awesome, man.
Canyon was awesome.
Yeah, it's such a shame that he got depressed and all of that, and then it's a shame.
Well, wouldn't it be really good if somebody like recovered the invasion angle and really give Chris Canyon like a more prominent role in it
as the lead member of Right to Censor?
Wouldn't that be great?
Oh,
maybe not the Right to Censor bit, but
All right. Does he replace Perry Saturn after Perry Saturn gets fired? So like he is Perry Saturn. He's named Perry Saturn, but it's obviously not Perry Saturn.
Yeah. It's like who better than Saturn?
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil things.
I mean, I'm pretty happy with that, but I mean, it's your story, my friend.
Hey, whenever you're doing your invasion angle, you twist it and turn it whatever way you want to.
All right.
I can't wait for the invasion. That's gonna be a good one. But anyway, I think that's the show.
That's the show.
I think we did pretty well. Remember to follow us on Twitter and to keep updated with all of our regular podcasts and our other musings about wrestling. Is it at Making Kayfabe?
We are at Making Kayfabe on Twitter. We are, if you follow us, if you tweet us, like our tweets, retweet our tweets, tell your friends. We're trying to get this podcast properly out there. We're going to try to be as active as we possibly can be on Twitter with all you guys listening. If you wanna email us, you can email us at makingkayfabe@gmail.com. Maybe you've got some ideas for episodes yourself, or maybe you've got feedback that extends beyond Twitter's character limit that you want to let us know about. Another thing
you guys
as well,
have like ideas for the little Kayfabe Tombola at the end, throw them our way.
Perfect. Yeah. If you've got ideas for Kayfabe Tombola, we will throw them right in there. We'll throw them right into that Tombola and come up with game shows and the like. Please base them around Chris Canyon if you can, because that is the ultimate. But yeah, another thing is to rate us on iTunes. Give us some good old 5-star ratings. It will really help us out, help us stand out. In the crowd of wrestling podcasts, because God knows there's fucking thousands of them these days. We should have got into this game kind of 10 years prior, but hey, we're here now.
Yeah. Better late than never, right?
Better late than never, my friend. Exactly. So, I think that's the episode, my friend.
Yes, thank you very much for listening, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Make sure to leave us some feedback and give us 5 stars, etc. You guys know the drill. Subscribe, comment, rate, tell your friends. But thanks a lot for listening, guys. We really appreciate it. And you know what? I think we'll see you guys in the next episode of Making Kayfabe.
Keep it kayfabe, my friends.